Hi there. My name is Minerva Perez, and I'm the Executive Director of OLA of Eastern Long Island, and you are watching Conversations with OLA. We have with us today our guest, Dan Lloyd, and Dan Lloyd is going to speak to us about the work he's doing through Minority Millennials and also Accelerate. OLA's production here of Conversations with OLA, and also thank you to LTV, our wonderful partners, is a way for us to bring forward some of the conversations and the wonderful and exciting, inspirational people that we get to meet along the way. And today, getting to speak with Dan is going to be a real treat. So Dan, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. It's an honor and pleasure, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. I had first had the chance to meet you during a panel that I was on with you for a nonprofit nonprofit hub focus.
Yes.
And at that point, I learned, first of all, it was wonderful to hear you speak about the work that you're doing with millennials, and so I want you to please talk a bit more about that, and we'll just kind of like bounce off of each other here. So, Minority Millennials is an organization that you did found. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so we launched it in 2017. It actually became an official nonprofit in 2018. And at the time, in my life, my personal life, I was kind of like in a position where I was trying to recreate my professional career, what I was doing. I had just gotten into a transition. I left New Jersey. I was 16. I got married. I was living with my parents. I was like in this weird state. And I come from a nonprofit family, as I mentioned on the panel. And I was just trying to figure out, like, what can I really inject some of my experience into that I care about? I really wanted to do something that I was passionate about, but also intertwine my experience. And on Long Island, specifically like in Wyandanch area, Central Suffolk, I realized that there was a lot of my colleagues, young people of color, that were not really engaged in the political process. Not only were they not engaged, they didn't really have any interest. They didn't care. And I'm like, you see this project, and my time in Newark, New Jersey, I spent there 15 years. I learned a lot about how local government and state government can fund a lot of projects when it comes to economic development, but also how communities or disadvantaged communities are kind of the foundation for economic development projects. And then if you're not involved or engaged, you really don't see that trickle-down effect go into your community. So we launched it to really just help young people of color become civically engaged. And since then, it's kind of become a three-tiered ecosystem. So our full mission now is help young people of color access jobs, build wealth, and become civically engaged. So we inject ourselves into three parts of what we believe is the most vital ecosystem of a community, which is civics, workforce, and economic development.
That's fantastic. And so that's been growing since 2017.
Yes.
And what are some challenges along the way, and how have you addressed some of those challenges to kind of make that real for people and not have it be the same 10 people you're working with over and over again?
Yeah, I think the simple challenge is like this concept of power. So when we talk about civic power or civic identity, what we're really talking about is how do we shift political will? And on Long Island, when you're talking about political will and you're talking about the social issues, it could be from housing, it could be from immigration, it could be public safety, it could be healthcare. Whatever the social issue is, you need to have that voting bloc that's going to stand firm and ensure that there's some type of pressure on local officials when you talk about civic governance. And so for us as an organization, where we're focused on 16 to about 36, it's really not just telling young people, go vote. It's why to vote, and an education process between the why and the action. So there's been a lot of, I would say, passion, especially with the summer of 2020, where you saw the murder of George Floyd, and just a lot of things come from COVID-19. However, that emotion and passion sometimes dies out. So as an organization, it's how do you continue to keep that passion, that emotion going on a local election when it's not just a presidential election, and it could be like a far left or far right issue going on. So I would say that's by far the single biggest problem, is just keeping that passion in that vote, because you really can't get anything done without shifting political will.
No, not at all. And then so what area, what township is that mainly?
Well, we're Long Island
You're all
now.
Long
Yeah, I mean,
Island.
we're not as far as in Wainscott, so.
Okay, maybe soon,
Not yet, anyway. But
we can still partner on things,
I
though.
would say, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I would say, as far as a member base in a
Okay.
community, you would say probably from town of Brookhaven all the way out to Elmont.
Okay,
We
wonderful.
are launching new chapters though soon, so we're going to be launching a
Okay.
chapter in Newark, New Jersey. We're going to be launching a chapter probably in Brooklyn or Manhattan to represent the five boroughs.
Okay.
Hopefully up in Albany, and as well.
Please,
Yeah.
I'm raising my hand. No, seriously. I mean, if there were ways that we could support that, I would be thrilled to do that.
Well, we have the structure, right? So we have
The
the
structure,
ecosystem.
yeah,
So now that's
yeah.
why we feel confident to launch new chapters.
Okay.
The thing is just making sure that the right people are leading it and not forgetting. It's very important. You can't just do civics without workforce.
Yeah.
You can't do workforce without economic development and
Sure.
economic development without civics. So a lot of organizations will say, just focus on one thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how you really are
Mm-mm,
able to
mm-mm.
be at the table
Mm-hmm.
and not get left out. You have to maintain all three facets of that ecosystem.
Yeah. I think also there's another organization out here that does some fantastic work, the Bridgehampton Child Care and Recreational Center. So they actually do a lot of workforce
Is that
development.
Miss Bonnie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know her very
You
well.
know Bonnie,
She's
yeah,
incredible.
Miss Bonnie's great. So having them also on the east end of Long Island and kind of the work that OLA does, which is not all the same things, some overlapping that we
Yeah.
have here and there, but I think that the civic engagement piece of it and also kind of on the other side of that, how to make sure that there is an environment or so that that ecosystem can kind of flourish.
Yeah.
Because you can have an ecosystem and plunk it down into the most inhospitable place,
Yeah.
and it's just not going to thrive,
Right.
So I think OLA is a great another entity there, I think, but maybe some kind of triangular motion here.
Yeah, collaboration.
Yeah,
I
I love
yeah,
it. I love it. Yeah.
exactly. And Long Island's a very unique place, so you need collaboration between organizations that may be similar but are focused on different issues.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. And the civic engagement, I mean, we have, like, as I've mentioned before, 50% Latino student body across 24 districts. We also have been involved in certain aspects of civic engagement that sometimes start to ring hollow when people are coming forward and they are interested, but there really isn't a place for them. And that's because we don't have, minority millennials, I think, because what we might do is work on a part of it and engage and get someone excited. But at the end of the day, it's a whole process. You've got to stay in that whole process together, the whole cycle of, why it's important, what this means, and sometimes even the education of what these positions actually are.
Yeah.
I'll hear over and over again, we need to have more Latinos in local government, more trustees, or in any regard, or anyone in local government, or even some of the paid positions that might be on paid boards, let's say. What is it even meaning? Why is it vital? You have to connect the vitality or the vital quality of
Yeah.
what you're doing, and not just for name or status or, oh, it's my duty to give back. It's like, no, there's a life or death quality
Yeah.
to these things. And if you can connect up with whatever that is for you, whether it's the environment, whether it's another social issue that's very important to you, access to public transportation, access to, special needs services and what's
Yeah.
going on there.
Yeah.
Language access, these types of things, whatever is really kind of like driving you, how can that connect up to your civic engagement?
Yeah, and I think again, I like to reiterate this a lot anytime I talk about what we do with civic engagement, because it's really, really crucial, is the concept of power. And the values behind that, because a lot of times when you talk about power, people think it's a negative thing or it's an evil thing, which it can obviously become. But if you ask anybody, do you like to feel like you have the power to support or help your mother or father? Or how do you feel if somebody is bullying you in high school? You feel powerless. So no one likes to feel powerless, but you want to make sure that the values behind that power is beneficial to your community, to your family, or to your personal life, your professional career. So regardless, and even if it's representation of ethnicity or race, if that person in that representation does not have the values, the good values that reflect the community, it could be detrimental and potentially evil to the community. So it's very important to decipher between the two.
Oh yeah, and we definitely see that. So we'll often see that someone will say, "Oh, well, look at this person speaks Spanish."
Yeah.
Well, honestly, sometimes that just is like you're just shifting the ball from one power hungry person to the other, and there's a level of exploitation.
Yeah.
There's a level of demagoguery. It's like, oh well, now I control this group of people because so absolutely the value system behind that is key in all of it, and I think that we've got sometimes some pretty bad modeling that goes on, and not just on a local level, but sometimes on a broader level where people are really putting their attention on news as they should, but then on a local level, it just kind of like disappears. It's like it's invisible.
Yeah.
But when you scratch the surface, you start seeing, you know what? I actually really like what that supervisor is doing for that
Exactly.
town.
Yeah.
I watch some of those, cable TV shows, watching them speak at their town board meetings, and I'm connecting with that person. But it's uncovering that, connecting people to that structure and what it means for them
Mm-hmm.
is laborious, and you need to have a dedicated effort to do that. So I'm glad you're doing that.
And sometimes it's how do you connect that power to solve problems to a pain? If there's a pain in the community, if there's an issue, or it could just be we want to elevate, our community. We want to elevate our quality of life. That we want to get to the next step. We want to be able to make sure that our children and grandchildren are able to pursue what we thought was an American dream, which we are seeing though is not necessarily what our parents had in the past. And so things are rapidly changing in the next 5 to 10 years. And so we need to, millennials, but also Gen Z and everyone has to have a sense of urgency as to, who is in leadership and which direction are we going to, because it's just shifting our entire way of life very, very fast.
Yeah.
And so we're going to need sound-minded people that do have values and understand the concept of power to protect us as a society. It's just the way it is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the sense of and kind of cutting through a sense of apathy that older folks, and I'm probably one of them. I don't think I do this that often, but I do see that people will look and say, well, they don't care about this, they don't care about that. Not to say that any generation has it so much worse than another generation, but the level of overwhelm, how easy it is to be shut down when you are just seeing one kind of challenging bad thing after the next. That at a local level, being able to energize and really have a conversation where you can get your hands around doing something that is making a difference, that does have play an immediate role in the health of a community, the health of your family, the health of yourself. That's the way that you can help grow a broader understanding, so that maybe that same person does end up being the person to help broker peace in all the millions of places that need to be. We need to have more peace, but especially right here in our own communities.
Yeah, and I think with technology, obviously, it's given us the opportunity to communicate and see or even interact with billions of people, social media, Instagram, TikTok. But at the same time, it's also mentally overwhelmed us. We have evidence of that now, where humans, we still have a mind that's basically of 300 BC. Like we haven't, our brains have not evolved, but the technology has evolved us where we're just constantly getting inundated with information. So many of us can't focus. They say that probably the most valuable skill set in the 21st century economy is just the ability to focus for 10 seconds. So most youth can't focus for 3 seconds. And then we're telling them, like, what kind of job do you want to have? What kind of career do you want to have? Oh, you got to vote, by the way. Oh, then they're getting bullied, not only in social media, but also in real life. So that's why there's so much depression and mental health. And as humans, though, we all look for acceptance, affirmation, and attention. So social media gives us the attention. It may not give us the acceptance, and it may not give us affirmation. So then it's like we're still dealing with all these weird quirks that we're seeing is having a huge impact on us as a society. And so we are actually kind of going back to where we just want to have a small community, be able to really interact on a personal level. As more artificial intelligence comes into play, we're actually going to be looking for more authenticity between human beings. So ironically, we're going back into a society that I believe, and as an organization, again, being able to civically identify with each other will be extremely, extremely powerful and beneficial.
I think that's a hopeful view as well, and I think just a very honest one. We just last night we do these youth leadership dinners where we'll gather youth together, sometimes from a few different districts, and really talk about. They're usually 11th or 12th graders, talk about some of the challenges, some of the opportunities that they're seeing for themselves. And oftentimes they're a mix of mostly Latino, but not always. We also partner with Shinnecock Nation and other organizations, Bridgehampton, of course, with Bonnie. And last night, the conversation, a lot of focus is on the future, on even having a future. So when we're talking with students about what they might want to be doing next. And some of them have already applied to colleges, some of them haven't. But oftentimes what we're hearing in the room and through our text lines, we operate a helpline from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. For mental and emotional health, is just a sense of doom, of I don't have a future. Like nothing in my present world is sharing with me that I could have a future, you know, and that's the saddest thing, because I think sometimes even adults when that are working with youth, they might be going through what they're going through, but what's not presented enough over and over again is the fact that there's a purpose that you have, that you will find it if you don't know what it is right now, that there is a future that you have, and your being here and your contribution to that, and whatever it is, even if it's you getting to be a happy person, is a contribution. But there's so many disconnects between our youth and even feeling that they have a future. And so, I mean, tell me some more about how you've seen it.
I think that's also, you know, I really, really love history, but you know the song Teenage Wasteland? It was like big in the 90s. And so like that's always been.
It's always been,
teenagers feel like there's no future.
Yeah,
You break up with your girlfriend. Oh, my life is awesome. You're like 35 years old. I know you don't even talk to them anymore. But the irony though now is that we are actually shifting in a society into like a technocratic community with intelligence and advancement. So they might be feeling that. They could feel like, you know, a report just came out that 60% of jobs will be displaced with artificial intelligence in 10 years. So all that information, and then we're telling them to go to college, and now we're realizing that a 4-year school may not even pay dividends. There's another report that just said that investment into STEM is not even paying dividends. So it's a lot of this stuff that they're getting inundated with, where it can kind of feel like they don't have a purpose. But I would say that is really cool and is super positive, is to your point on purpose and happiness. And they have the ability to, I would say, as the first generation in this new kind of like technological society, is to really define what that means in a way that we haven't really been able to figure out. Because nothing is new under the sun. Humans have been dealing with all this happiness, depression, whatever it is, since the inception of mankind. So it's a challenge, and this could be a challenge for them to solve that we have not been able to solve yet. And also make sure that we're steered in the right direction as a society, because they're going to be leading us. The next 20 years, this is all going to change. Everything, as you mentioned, the organizations you work with, like Shinnecock and everything, and there's a huge environmental shift right now to offshore wind. You know, and that generation, Gen Z generation, those in high school, can make sure that our communities benefit from clean energy. You know, and really make sure that the Shinnecock Nation and the groups that have not really benefited from fossil fuels and these type of billion-dollar, trillion-dollar industries actually get the economic advantages that is coming down in the next 20, 30 years. So it's a great opportunity to leave a mark, more so leave a purpose in this, it's almost a new society that's going to be happening. And they're going to be what, 25, 30 in this new society? Prime to leave a mark and to leave a legacy. So it's an incredible opportunity.
And the thing is that, like you're saying, which I love hearing, is that this is going to happen anyway. This is just going to happen. So it's, you know, but there are ways organizations like yours and the work that you're doing help kind of shape or guide or make sure the access points are there. I'd say that out here sometimes it does feel like the structure is difficult even for an adult to kind of, or an older adult to even kind of get involved in. I feel like, you know, folks that are even watching this today or tonight or wherever they're watching it, the idea that you truly are making space for other people to be at the table. I mean, some things that it's even difficult for OLA to do, but even with our mental health work, we always have a middle schooler and a high schooler that we're paying to be part of every semester. So that way, with their voice, with their opinions about whatever our outreach campaign is looking like, or anything they want to bring, or if we're bringing people together that we're making the time to do that. And if I'm having a powerful or a big conversation with our assemblyman, you know, for our district, that I brought a middle schooler to that conversation, but in whatever way that we can, and not just for show, you know, let them. They have a bunch of things they've got prepared to talk about, and that they're going to kind of demand from you, and you to be able to listen to a demand of a middle schooler, you know. But you know, however we can encourage. Because I'll see over and over again these initiatives that are supposed to be for youth that don't ever have youth at the table. And it's kooky.
That's very wise of you. So we have a Gen Z coordinator, and she's a senior in high school. She actually just got accepted into Columbia. And I felt the same way. Like, I'm 37 now, and when I started this, I was 30, so I was still kind of like in that young, cool phase. And then I realized, like, oh, I don't know anything anymore as far as like what they're in. So I'm
Yeah.
advocating,
Yeah.
but actually I'm advocating for a different age group now. And so when we brought in, her name is Makala, to actually speak and talk for high schoolers and the next generation that's coming up, because their lived experience is way different than mine right now.
Absolutely.
I'm not in high school with social media.
Mm-hmm.
I'm married. I have 2 kids. So it's like I'm just not in that experience. So
Yeah.
it becomes inauthentic to then advocate and talk about these things without them at the table. And ironically, again, to go back to history, if you look at like the 1800s, 1700s, and the way that our government was structured, it was founded by 20-year-olds. It was like these were all like 20.
Rabble rousers.
Yeah, like, and most societies and
Yeah.
governments, like everyone was very young. I don't know where we ended up going with like 80-year-old presidents and stuff, but it's always been structured and pursued by young people that can lead it. So
But power is a powerful drug, and once
it
you
is.
have it, you don't want to let go of it. And
Yeah.
the longer that we live, the longer that we're going to try to hang on to this power. But it really is with having the knowledge that we're not going to get anywhere with all this thing that we think that we're doing when we're hanging on to it if we're not creating the space. So I feel that my role in this role is making space. I'm just kind of holding the door. I'm making space, and then just like getting out of the way.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's a lot of what my role is, and our team is kind of getting younger and younger as well.
Good.
But it's really also just making sure that there's a level of accountability also, because we'll see different initiatives kind of come through, sweep through, and they might have a youth focus. But now I'm kind of opening my mouth a little bit more about, well, yeah, but where's the youth? Who's under 20 at this table? Or who's at least somewhere around that age? And to really call it out a bit more, because it's kind of too easy to do.
Yeah.
And people are like, yeah, but we're doing this for this generation, and we're doing it for them. We're doing it for them, but they're not there.
Yeah.
It doesn't work the same way. But I think there's a long way to go, but at the same time, we're moving in that direction. Like you said, it's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
But why not put some English on it, some spin on it, that we're continuing to have our values at the center of it, a good heart about it. Why are we doing this?
And I would say it's very important when you find a young person that is passionate to like hold on to them for dear life, because it is extremely difficult to get 5 young people to really, really hone in and be focused and collaborate and have a passion for a mission. So if you find 1 or 2, and this is for anybody that's working with young people, give them as much power as possible, and empower them, support them, and really just make sure that they have the resources necessary. Because there is though, I would say on the flip side, on the negative, there does seem to be just a disinterest in civics on the majority level of young people. So it is difficult to get them to care.
It's difficult. It's a little bit of a trust thing. It's like you kind of have to prove it.
Yeah.
Prove it. And if you keep disproving it, it's hard to get someone to kind of come along with you for the ride.
Yeah.
And also, I think the other thing about when you get that person, hang on to them and re-examine your structure, have them examine your structure.
Yeah.
How often do you meet? When you meet? How do you meet?
Yeah.
How do you value their input? Because it might be old school, and it might be not the way that they're going to work. And then really have trust them to share with you what's another structure that might work, that you're going to get the same or better from their involvement, but you're not steeping them in this old school system that just doesn't give them what they need. Yeah. But got a couple minutes left. I know that you're with Accelerate as well as a program director.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, Accelerate was started in 2011 by, at the time, it was the town of Brookhaven and Supervisor Mark Lesko, and a couple of advisors from the area, Dave Cologne, Stacy Sykes. And the focus at that time was to just kind of create a collaboration between the research institutions that we have here, incredible ones, like Stony Brook University, Brookhaven National Laboratory, Cold Spring Harbor, and Hofstra, who all are still currently on our board, presidents, as well as Northwell Health, and the business community, to create a thriving startup community with the intent of commercialization. And so we have these incredible research institutions that are solving literally global problems. Can we also make sure that there's a local startup community that's thriving, similar to like a Silicon Valley?
Yeah.
But right here on Long Island. Since 2011, we have invested into 30 startups. We have invested over $2 million, and we still manage a fund of about 21 startups. So I manage that as a program director. And just making sure that they're able to get follow-up funding, get into Series A, Series B funding. And again, that is a focus on life science and biotech. So what that means
Okay.
is that whatever they're focusing on has some type of genetic or biochemical or life science focus when it comes into the research that they're doing.
Okay.
We also just got a $1.25 million grant from the state. It's called a Hotspot Innovation. That's open to any type of startup. So that could be a software, that can be artificial intelligence, that could be anything. It doesn't have to just be life science and biotech. And the cool thing about that is if you have an idea, we can help you get that idea to an actual
An incubator.
an incubator. We have 5 incubators across Long Island that we're working with. And we'll also match any expenses up to 1/3. So if you're looking for an IP, legal, marketing, let's just say it's $10,000, we can cover up to $3,333 on that. So any startup knows that can be a substantial cost, and we can help offset that. We're also doing a lot of events. We have an event coming up February 13th. That is a Tuesday at 6 p.m. at Broad Hollow Bioscience Park at Farmingdale College. It's actually going to be in a wet lab. So, just kind of changing it up a bit.
Wow, yeah.
We want to really there's a lot of cool entrepreneurs. There's a huge research scene. But it's not, we're just trying to get it. Long Island, as you know, is the layout is a little disconnected. So how can we bring the whole community together? And also just make a safe space for these entrepreneurs to connect and communicate and share ideas about what they're working on. There's a really cool one. There's one out here, actually. His name is William Haynes. He has a company called Somnial. And so if you know anybody that has had sleep apnea, my father has sleep apnea, you have to wear this horrible mask.
Yeah. So he's working on that. And what's his name again?
William Haynes.
William Haynes. And what's any name?
Somnial.
Somnial. So
Yeah.
we'll make sure people get out there and look that up as well. We've only got like a little short moment left, so I just want to take that moment to just thank you again for coming on out here, for doing the work that you do, for the openness to maybe be able to collaborate in the near future, and speaking with us today. Thank you so much, Dan.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah.